I feel like consistency is really the key. Consistency and transparency. To be successful in trading, the most important skill you need to have is to be consistent, right? Because you're not going to make money every single day. You can't, when you take a trade, you don't know if you're going to win or lose, no matter how good your system is. There's no secret system, but what matters is that you are consistently managing your risk and consistently managing your emotions. And it's all based on consistency. And the same thing with marketing. You have to be consistent. You have to show up every day.
What is up, action taker? Welcome back to After Hours Entrepreneur, your guide to profitable six-figure years. I'm your host, Mark Savant. And today in the house, we've got Mr. Casey Stubbs. Casey is the founder of TradingStrategyGuides.com, podcaster, YouTuber, doing some really, really cool stuff around trading stocks, futures, etc. But this episode is not necessarily about trading stocks. This episode is about building a business educationally and diversifying your exposures. One of the things that I've run into personally in building up my podcast agency is the problem with feast or famine. Some months things are great. I'm generating lots of clients. Some months, not so much. And in the stock world, it can be the same thing. And the problem is, if you're so reliant on one stream of income, you can become desperate, you can make bad decisions. And that, my friends, is what today is about. It's about helping you diversify your income, diversifying your cash flow so that you're able to make the right decisions, that you're able to take risks in your business. Super fascinating conversation with Casey today. You're gonna love it. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for being here. Let's get into the episode. DJ, run the tape. Casey, what's up?
Hey, Mark, how are you?
I am killing it, loving life, excited to talk about your trading business today and how it's been diversified. You've got a really fascinating story, so I'm excited to get into that with you here today, if you are ready.
I am ready.
Cool. So, and I was trying to kind of think about where to start this thing off. So I think I'm going to go back in time. And you started trading, which is kind of led you to where you're at today while you were in the Army. But I want to go back even a little bit further. How did you get into the Army in the first place? Like, what was the impetus? Why did you decide to join the military? And by the way, thank you for your service. I very much appreciate the freedom, the safety, and the sanctity that me and my family have. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome. And I don't think that, like myself, like most other veterans, I don't think they think, oh, I'm going to do something honorable, because that was definitely not my intention. I was going to college and I realized that I think school is total garbage. I hated it, man. I was like, I would go in and I would look at the board. They'd have an employment board because I was from Portland, Oregon. I went to Portland Community College. And I'd look at that employment board every day and say, what could I do to get out of college? And there was this one application for getting on a fishing boat in Alaska. And it was high pay. And I was like really wanting to do that because it was like dangerous and very difficult and causing a lot of physical pain. And so I was like, yeah, this sounds like something I want to do. But before I did that, the Army recruiter got a hold of me. He was just walking in the hallway and grabbed me. And so that I was like, okay, whatever it takes to get me out of here, I'm going.
So I want to dive into this a little bit more, because the benefit of going to college is it lays out your whole life in front of you. You get this nice cushy job. You land a nice wife. You buy a house, white picket fence, dog, kid. Like that's the dream, right? Like, what was it that you didn't like about college where you're like, I'm just going to beat the crap out of myself on an ice fishing boat in Alaska? Because I've seen the show about catching the crabs. That does not seem like the dream job to me. What was the mindset there?
Well, that was before the show, so I didn't really know. But my dad was, he was a hardworking guy, and he worked in gold mines and heavy equipment, and did a lot of hard work. So I wasn't kind of looking into that. I like hard work, and I hated school. I feel like I'm a smart guy, and I love to educate, but I have maybe a little bit of authority issues. And so I want to learn what I want to learn about, and I don't want to learn what you're telling me to learn about because this is stupid. And so I would just like read my own material while I was in class, that kind of thing, whatever I wanted to learn. But yeah, I just didn't like it. And I like excitement. I like adventure. When I joined the military, I wanted to try to find the most difficult job I could find.
And listen, I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. I think that growing up, I was kind of born with entrepreneurial blood, despite the fact that I've always been an employee. I just now became an employer 3 months ago when I left my day job. I mean, I had team members before that, but that's when it really became real. The thing that school does is it teaches how to take tests. And like you said, there's a lot of infrastructure. The thing that I didn't really love about that was having someone control my destiny. I like what you did. You get an A, but I really like the fact that I get to control my destiny as an entrepreneur. But when I think about the military, sure, there's adventure, but there's always somebody telling you what to do. Wasn't that a turnoff for you? Or did you really appreciate the discipline that it brought you?
So I didn't really think about that going in. I just knew I didn't want to be in school, so I didn't realize that they were going to literally control every aspect of my life. I kind of had no idea about that. But they control your life, but then they go and tell you to do extremely dangerous things. So that's kind of cool. But, when you mention the entrepreneurial thing, like we're here to teach people how to make a 6-figure side of revenue, which I absolutely love. But there's something about being an entrepreneur that's like, for me, it's probably the only thing that I could ever really be. It's like, that's what I was created to be.
Yeah. I do think, though, I don't think that you have, how do I say this? I haven't always been a reader, but I've recently started reading all the time, right? So I've become a reader. I don't think you necessarily are born an entrepreneur. I think that it is something that you can learn, frankly, I think it's something that we have to learn nowadays. Tomorrow's not promised. I mean, your job could go under. You need to be learning new skills.
It's absolutely critical. And I agree, Mark, that you're not born with it. But for me, there was always a passion to go out and just make something happen. And so I wasn't born with any entrepreneurial skills. I've made every mistake in the book. But I do have this like fire and passion that I don't know where that comes from, but it just keeps burning.
That brings you back to Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, which is a great book. And he's got this concept that was really formative for me. It's getting comfortable with discomfort. Because sitting on a couch and relaxing, eating Cheetos and playing Halo, that's fun in the moment, but it doesn't drive you. It doesn't wake you up in the morning. And I think it leads to a lot of sadness. I think it's taking on those very, very challenging problems, overcoming them, which gives you that sense of purpose and that sense of confidence. At least it did for me.
Yeah, there's a quote, I think, by Jim Rohn, the motivational speaker, that said, "Don't wish for things to be easier, wish for things for you to get better."
Well said. Very well said. That definitely resonates with me quite a bit. So I want to pick back up in your story before I get too far off track. Sorry, Casey. There's so many interesting things that guests say that I just got to go into a little bit. You join the military, you join the Army, you're getting into it. I would imagine they keep you pretty busy in the Army. What was the day where you're like, you know what? I'm going to pop open E-Trade. I'm going to start trading stocks. Like, how did that happen?
So there is a little backstory to it, and it's, again, from my dad. He's been investing in stocks for a long time. And when I was a kid, I learned about computers and really took to them. So my Aunt Mary worked for Intel. She would bring home computer parts. This is like late 80s. And so as a kid, she was teaching me how to build and take computers apart. And then when stock trading came online, my dad's from the boomer generation. He didn't really know much about computers, and he's also a blue collar guy, but he was investing in stocks, and he's like, "Hey, you got to show me how to set this stock platform up." And he didn't even know how to do the computer. So in high school, I set that stock platform up for him. And then I was like, oh man, I can make money doing this. This is amazing. So that's what started it. And then when I was in the Army, I was making decent amount of money. So I'm like, okay, that's where my money's going, stock market.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, and that makes sense. You start to build out the skill, start practicing the skill. It's fun to you. It's interesting to you. But don't you just lose a ton of money day trading? Like I know anytime I get into day trading, it has not worked for me. Like what kept you involved with it while you were in the Army? Like were your bunkmates coming at you and saying like, wow, that's interesting. How did you do that? Like, how did it evolve from there when you got started?
Well, most of the guys in the Army were basically what I would call paycheck to paycheck guys. So
Sure.
they weren't too interested in investing in the markets. I would tell them about it, but they didn't find a lot of interest there. But, sometimes you have this like beginner's luck type thing, which I don't know if you ever experienced that in any of your businesses or anything. Sometimes you start out and you fall on your face, and sometimes you get lucky, and I got lucky. I got in at like late 90s, and so that was like the biggest bull run the market had ever experienced. And so I bought a lot of tech stocks, and it just took off on me. And so I made a lot of money. And so by the time I got out of the military, I had a very big nest egg. And it wasn't day trading, it was just buy and hold, but the market did nothing but going up during that time.
Brilliant. So let's keep going here, which by the way, my experience, especially with business, has never been striking pay dirt. It's always been try something, fail miserably, learn from it, and continually improve and iterate. And I try to help people avoid the pain now because it can definitely be painful. But
well, that's a blessing though that you had to learn the hard way the first time. That's kind of a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, just building up my podcast business. I had no experience in broadcasting and digital media, nothing. And, I had to learn it. All the while watching all the experts, quote unquote, crushing it in front of their Lambos while they, were with their Starbucks laptop job. But anyway, I digress. I think that, for me, like you said, there is a bit of a blessing having to go through the dirt, the muck, the trials. If I had to theme out this episode, that's what it would be so far. It's those hardships make you stronger and more resilient. And I certainly would not trade them.
Yeah, Mark, I agree. Although as I said, I got it easy a few times, but that doesn't last forever. The luck doesn't always run that smooth. So yeah.
No, I mean, that's a good point too. Because if you get lucky a couple times, then you maybe don't appreciate what you've built or what you have. Yeah, I know. Well, let me bring it kind of back here. So you get out of the Army, you've started to build up this infrastructure. You've got this wealth. Why not just retire on a beach? Like what happened next?
So the next thing I did was I went and got out of the military, sold all of my stock and invested it in my own business, a carpet cleaning franchise. And the reason I chose carpet cleaning, because that was the first job I got when I got out of the Army. And I was like, oh man, I could do this. It's so easy.
And was it?
I basically lost everything.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So carpet cleaning, not exactly the most sexy job. So how did you find out about the carpet cleaning franchise? You started cleaning carpets for a company, for a business, right?
Yeah.
And then you decided, hey, this is pretty easy. I can do it on my own.
Yeah, I was just, I have this bad habit of looking at numbers in my mind, and I'm not a good math person, but I'm like, okay, I just collected $450 in revenue today from my boss, and he just sat around and ate Cheetos all day. Like, wait a second, this is not good. So I told him, I said, hey, I'm going to go and get this, because I had money. Remember, I just got out of selling all those stocks. So I said, hey, I'm leaving you and I'm going to go start a franchise. And he says, oh, that's a terrible idea. And, I'm like, okay, see ya.
Yeah, but you want to do it. You want to make it happen. So what happened next? You start the franchise, you invest, tens of thousands of dollars in your equipment, in the systems, the licensing, right, of the franchise, branding. And then what, did you have any clients or did you just go into it cold?
So the way that worked was that it was licensed for an area. So I had to move out of my boss's area because he had owned that area. There couldn't be two competing franchises in the same geographical area. So I had to move. And yeah, I put all the money I had into it, and I ran it for a little while, and I just didn't have a marketing plan. So I wasn't great at getting business. You don't really know any of that stuff. I went through like a crash course. They teach you a crash course. They teach you a crash course when you sign up, but I just didn't have enough experience. A couple different things. I was also in the reserves on the side and ended up getting called back to Iraq after that. And plus I had a lot of immaturity, just doing a lot of young, irresponsible stuff. So I wanted to have the success, but I didn't quite have the maturity and responsibility to keep it going.
How are you landing clients? Were you getting out and shaking hands? Were you going to insurance companies, businesses? Like, how are you landing clients?
My main marketing strategy back then was flyers handed out in the parking lots. Phone book. I had phone book. And
phone book. All right.
When they had a phone book, when that was the thing. And then I would do ads in the newspaper. That was the primary method. And now I saw all the other great things that I could have done differently. But I didn't, I just didn't quite have the experience for that yet.
Yeah. So, I mean, what was I don't want to pry too deeply, but like, what was the big lesson that you took away from that, right? You spent a bunch of money, you built this business and it didn't work out. Like, what's the big takeaway for you?
The big takeaway was that I was just not committed the way that I thought that I was. The number one thing for success is commitment. You've got to say, look, I'm going to do this, and no matter what, I'm going to stick with it. And so I just didn't have that. I just didn't have the commitment.
Do you think that's because you're doing something you weren't passionate about, or because, like you said, you were immature? Like, why do you think you couldn't commit? Because I would think that, putting tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars into a business, that's a pretty big commitment, right?
Yeah. I think what happened was it got a little harder than what I thought. Right. And it wasn't easy. And, plus the immaturity, the alcoholic drug use type thing just really took me down the wrong path. And it didn't officially fail until I got called away for the Army again. And so when I got called away, when I came back, I just decided not to start it up.
Gotcha. So, well, then what, right? Your life's been this carpet cleaning, military service. You get back, you decide to close it down. Well, then what did you do next?
Well, at that point, I was in a really good relationship with my current wife, and I was just going to start working. And so I got a job as a construction worker after that. And I was still investing, still doing stocks, but I was working construction, and I was also running a couple other side businesses. I just can't help myself. Like, so, I'm doing construction. I'm making homemade fragrant soap in the basement, selling that on the side.
Nice Fight Club style, right? You and Tyler Durden. So,
pretty much just like that. Yeah.
Was your wife involved in that project also, in the soap and these other projects?
Yeah, because I'm not really good at telling you what smells good. Like, I could care less about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was just an idea. I think it was my father-in-law was like, hey, you should try to sell some soap. I don't know where he came up with that idea. I don't know where it came from. But if somebody gives me an idea, I'm like, I can run with that.
Fight Club, probably. He's probably watching Fight Club. He's like, Brad Pitt did it. Why not? Yeah. But I do just going to kind of take a step back here and give a shout out to all the partners in the background of businesses. Because I definitely don't think they get enough credit. I don't think I would be here where I'm at today without my wife's support. She cleaned me up, bro. I was a hot mess. I was a hot mess, man. And, I'm not afraid to admit it either. Like, my life as a single guy just trying to figure life out. Couldn't dress, couldn't handle my hair. Everything was off.
Mark, I want to give a shout out because that's a great point. The people that support us, like I saw this conference and I get mad over this, right? Like, this is an anger thing for me. I've taken a lot of risks and done a lot of things. I've worked really hard, but like when I see like what they call the self-made conference, with all these entrepreneurs celebrating that they're self-made. I'm like, that's the biggest load of BS in the world, because there's no such thing as anyone who's self-made. Everybody has somebody that had some kind of impact in your life. And if you're going to sit there and say you're self-made, that's egotistical, arrogant, idiot talk.
Yeah. Or, at the very least, it's a lack of recognizing the help that got there. And, the problem with that too is, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you're trying to do everything all by yourself on your own, I think that's a big mistake. When I look back onto my journey, I kind of had this mentality. I don't want to hire a coach. I don't want to mentor. I don't want to be part of mastermind groups. They're too expensive. I ended up spending tens of thousands of dollars building up the podcast agency, just poof, out the window. In hindsight, I think that if I would have found the right mentor, coach, consultant, etc., and invested in that relationship and in that education, I probably could have gotten to where I was going a lot faster. Not a doubt in my mind.
So, Mark, have you made the switch? Do you have any mentors now?
Yes, no, kind of so. So I probably need to take my own medicine here. I don't have like a one-on-one coach, but I am part of several mastermind communities, networking groups. And so I think that that's been a big shift in putting more emphasis on that, surrounding myself with the right people. But yeah, I haven't hired like a single coach yet, which probably will be something that happens.
It can help give you focus. I've done it. I've gone without having a coach, and I've gone with. And it can definitely help you focus, right? And sometimes we need focus as entrepreneurs because we're juggling so many different things. And so it can help you focus and prioritize. That's what I think a good coach really does.
Yeah. Well, the tricky part about starting a business is we can't always see our blind spots, right?
I don't know what I don't know, and I got a lot of blind spots.
It's fair. It's like we're all experts at pointing out what everybody else is doing wrong, but we can't see our own stink. You know what I mean?
I'm too busy looking. Yeah. No, boy, that's a problem, right? And so a great sign of maturity is when you can realize that you might think that you're right, but maybe you're not actually right.
Yeah. Yes. But there's a fine balance here too. I have found, and you might resonate with this too, we live in this world where we're getting new information all the time. And it's amazing to me how I'll watch, let's say, I'll give you an example. I was watching YouTube the other day and this ad pops up. This guy, he's all shredded. He says, this is the diet that you need to get on so you can shred weight and be your best self. And he gave this really specific example over the next 45 seconds about how you need to do intermittent fasting and you just drink a cup of coffee in the morning and all this stuff. I was like, that's genius. That's the exact way for me to lose weight. And I followed it for like 6 months. But I don't think your body needs protein. Your body needs certain types of nutrients to go with it. So my point here is that it's amazing to me how we will hear, listen, see, read like a really tiny piece of advice completely taken out of context, and then it will warp our entire life around that small piece of advice. It's amazing to me.
Yeah, it is amazing, and I guess we just hear what we hear or hear what we want to hear, and context and big picture is really important. And as an entrepreneur as well, I try to look at, okay, I actually used this example with one of my students today. I said, you know what, you want to look down at your feet so you're making sure you got sure footing, but then you want to look at the path to see where you are ahead, and then you want to lift your head up and look down the road to see where you're going. You got to have all perspectives. You got to have the whole picture, medium, near, and far.
I like that. Good analogy. Very much what we're talking about here. I was watching a Gary Vaynerchuk video the other day too. He's talking about how if you're not putting out 100 pieces of content a day, you are losing. I'm thinking to myself like, what? However, there's context there. He's not speaking to the small team right? He's talking to these Fortune 500 companies with $100 million marketing budgets. Putting things in perspective is important.
You have to know who he's talking to, because I can't do that. I mean, if we're going to talk about six-figure side hustles, I've got a great content strategy. I'm putting out article content, and I'm putting it out on social media, and it's doing great for lead gen. But, it took me a while to get to that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I want to get to this point quickly here before the episode's over, right? So you're in the construction business, you leave the construction business, right? It doesn't work out. Market takes a dump. You get left off. You get dropped. What did you do now, right? You've been doing all these little side hustles, the soap, these other projects. What happens next? You get laid off from your job.
So I get laid off from my job, and I'm just trying to make things happen. So the first thing is I'm trying to get more work. And I was just interviewing quite a bit, and nothing came through. Just couldn't get a job. So that was a little discouraging, but I'm a tech guy. I've been in tech, been involved with web, and I'm a trader. And so I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to start a trading website. And so I started a trading website, and then hence the second lucky streak. My first lucky streak was when I first started trading, and then my second one was when I started this website, because I had it open for a couple months, and I started getting a lot of traffic, and I didn't know how to monetize at all, but I started meeting people that were like, hey, you got a lot of traffic, you should do this, you should do that. And so through there, I learned how to monetize the website. And my first year, which was 2009, I did six figures, and I never had to go back to work after that.
That's amazing. So that's 2009. I mean, how were you getting all the traffic back then?
So the main way was that, it was so different then, but just a little nugget is I found an article on a website called associateprograms.com, and it was titled, how to make $1,000 a month online. That was the article. And see, you know what I did? I just followed the instructions. That's all I did. And I would read that article daily for a long time. But I would submit it to article directories. That was something that you would do then. You would write content and then spin that content all over the internet with magazines. You don't do that kind of stuff anymore. Like they had e-zine articles, and they would syndicate that article all over the place. And I submitted it to a couple news sites, and the news sites would pick up my content. And that's really how I got the traffic, was some of the bigger news sites picked it up.
Brilliant. I mean, you're just leveraging attention. And to your point, attention has changed over the last 13, 14 years. So let's kind of bring people, we've kind of gone through your backstory here in how you went from, broke dad to where you're at now with your giant trading business. I want to ask you some questions about what you're doing now. Okay. Let me lay it up to you and just kind of explain, what's the name of your business? What is your core competency?
So my business now, it's a website called tradingstrategyguides.com, and we have free trading education on the website, strategies that someone can use in the market. And it doesn't necessarily have to be day trading. You can apply some of these to day trading. It depends. Some people can trade based off of a weekly long-term investment. So there's a lot of different time horizons, but essentially we educate people in the financial markets.
Love it. So there's a lot of quote unquote financing trading gurus out there. How do you stand out? How do you build credibility? I think that credibility is probably one of the most important things we can all do as business owners, particularly important when you're in the finance industry. How are you building credibility?
So you go and get a Lambo and you take shots in front of it.
You need bikini babes too. You forgot the bikini babes.
No, just kidding. The only reason I said that is because you said that in the beginning of the show. I feel like consistency is really the key. Consistency and transparency. In trading, to be successful in trading, the most important skill you need to have is to be consistent, right? Because you're not going to make money every single day. You can't, when you take a trade, you don't know if you're going to win or lose, no matter how good your system is. There's no secret system, but what matters is that you are consistently managing your risk and consistently managing your emotions. And it's all based on consistency. And the same thing with marketing. You have to be consistent. You have to show up every day.
Frankly, I can't do it. I'm like, I don't know if you've seen this episode of Seinfeld where Jerry like buys a $200 stock and he just can't sleep for 3 days. It's kind of how I am. But what's interesting to me, and we were talking about this a little bit, is transitioning into an education platform. You don't just rely on what the stock market does daily. You've got all these different sources of income. Is that how you had kind of planned things out at the beginning? Did this happen over time and evolve? How did you get to where you're at?
I didn't plan anything. I just started a website because I was taking a shot in the dark. I was like, I need money. I don't have a job. So I didn't plan. Sorry to disappoint the people that were hoping I had a grand plan. I didn't have a plan. But now I have a plan. Now I have like a big, I listened to the Cameron Herold Vivid Vision, and it's a book on how to create your vision. So I got my 3-year vision, my $20 million vision. I've got everything laid out. I'm focusing on my plan all the time. But initially I didn't have a plan. I was just trying to make some money.
Well, I love the idea of starting before you have a plan. I freaking love that. I mean, it's scary at first to start before you have a plan. But the reality is it's very easy to get caught up in educating yourself, planning, talking, researching, but you really don't know what's going to happen until you start executing.
Mark, I talk to people who spend $50,000 to $100,000 in education before they even take a step. Like, I don't know if you've ever talked to anyone like that, but like one of my first products that I ever bought was in 2010. I bought Jeff Walker's product launch formula, and it's how to do online launches with your product. And I went to the conference and I was talking to everybody, and I bought his product and then did the launch 2 weeks later and paid for the course and then some. I made like $10,000. And I'm talking to everyone there, and I literally think I was the only one at the conference that was doing what Jeff was teaching.
Wow.
Everybody else was spending, they're like, I bought Jeff's course, and I bought Joe's course, and I bought Frank Kern's course, and I bought and I haven't quite ready to launch yet. It's like, just do it.
That's where the learning is. Education without action is just a distraction. I remember in elementary, middle school, high school, Spanish. Spanish was required. It was a required class, a required elective. My final year of Spanish 2 in high school, I remember the teacher, this is after 9-10 years of Spanish, right? The Spanish teacher greets the room. Hola, ¿qué pasa? Me llamo Mrs. God, I can't remember what her name was now. Can't remember what her name is. And she's like, she basically said the entire class is going to be in Spanish. I'm not going to speak English at all while you're in here. I was like, holy crap, I'm going to fail. I don't know any of these words. I didn't know anything. 8, 9, 10 years of Spanish. I had memorized words like I know how to say cat is gato, right? But other than that, I couldn't speak it. 9, 10 years of that. 2 months. I got a job after high school in a restaurant. 2 months in the kitchen, and I was speaking Spanish, baby. I was communicating with the staff, with the kitchen. It's about the action. It's about putting yourself in the middle. It's immersing yourself in the process.
You would have been better off, Mark, to like not take the class and just go to Mexico.
Yeah. Heck yeah. I would have been way better in Mexico, you know? But that's just it. It's like, you know, it's so easy to say, I'm not ready to start. And I run a podcast agency. This is a pretty common issue I see with people that want to start a podcast. They want to start it, but I'll be ready in 90 days. Once 90 days happens, then I'll be ready. Spoiler alert, you're never going to be ready. It's never the right time.
Just do it. You're going to make mistakes. Get over it. I make tons of mistakes. Oh man, a lot.
But it's learning from those mistakes. That's where the gasoline comes from.
How many
That's
times
where,
do you make the same mistake?
hopefully once.
There's one, I hired a guy and it just didn't work out. And then, I didn't let him go fast enough. And then I'm like, okay, I learned from that. And then I did the exact same thing over again. It's like, why?
Well, and that happens too. And that's, I think, to your point, part of the reasons why it's valuable to have a coach. You can say, hey, you don't see this blind spot here, but it's there. And I think we need to be humble enough to be able to accept that type of advice too, that type of insight.
Yeah. Yeah. And knowing the people that you surround yourself with, they might not always be right, but at least they have your best interests. Like knowing who really cares about you and has your best interest is a lot of wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. 100%. Although even if someone has your best interest, the advice might not be good. I was working with this client one time. We were trying to think of the perfect name for this person's podcast. And we had slaved over this name. We had worked for weeks on the perfect name, SEO, research, keywords, all that. Came up with the perfect name. 2 days after we had come up with the perfect name, the person messaged me, hey, Mark, my wife was talking to her hairdresser and she thinks that maybe this is a better name. I was like, where are we getting advice from here?
Well, did that hairdresser really have her best interest in mind?
maybe, but like, what does she know about generating
credibility? It is Ray Dalio has a book called Principles, and he says credibility from the people that are giving you counsel is really important.
100%. 100%. That's a book I need to pick up, by the way. I've been really into reading over the past 12 months, 24 months. So that Ray Dalio's Principles has got to be one I pick up. He's got a great YouTube video too, where he kind of walks you through the principles. Great.
Yeah.
Speaking of YouTube, by the way, your YouTube channel is got like 50,000, 45,000 subscribers. That's amazing. Congratulations, by the way.
Thanks.
Can you tell me what was the impetus for starting the YouTube channel and when did you start it?
So I started, I think, in 2017. It was just part of my overall marketing plan, just to get out there more. And it's really been great to reach people and educate them, because I started out with content with articles. And so it's just really helpful with financial markets to be able to demonstrate on a chart. So most of the videos are a screen capture where I'm looking at a chart explaining what the market is doing while looking at the chart.
Which by the way, some of my most popular YouTube videos have just been that. It's been share the screen, talk about a topic, educate the audience on the topic, done. It doesn't have to be like super thoroughly produced for that to be successful.
Yeah. And, with my personality about not having a plan and, just jumping in, I don't pay a lot of attention to editing and details. I'm not a detail person. I'm a big picture person. So, if you consume some of my content, you will know that.
Fair. And, some people might see that as a weakness, but I kind of see it as a strength. When we look at what we're spending time on, pretty frequently we're spending tons of time on stuff that just doesn't turn the needle on anything. It's just like busy work. You know what I mean?
How much, if you spend an extra hour editing your podcast, how much profit is that extra hour going to spend you? Or could I go spend my time doing something that's going to bring in more money?
That, my friend, is a good question. It's a very good question. And I think there's a time and place for putting in all that extra effort, but you have to assess it. You have to assess, where's my return on this?
Yeah. And I used to kind of stick my nose up at like the quality side of things, but now I'm getting better. So I kind of have a process. I want to launch something and I want it to be good quality, but the strategy now for me is to consistently improve my quality over time and just to continue to reassess my processes. And, my team helps me out with that because they know how I am. And, they help me. The good people, I got good people around me.
Hey,
They help me with my weaknesses.
Yeah, but you absolutely need them. Joanna, I love you, baby. You have definitely helped me there. Joanna's my wife, by the way. So I do want to kind of talk about the importance of what you're doing here with the training and the various sources of income. I run an agency. Some months I've got tons of new clients coming in. There's tons of work. I'm landing big sales, big ticket sales, and it is beautiful. Beautiful. Some months are slow. Some months it's like crickets and you're like, what the heck am I going to do? Where's the cash flow? And so because of that, I started building up other sources of revenue. I have a podcast mastermind community, which is great. I know every month I'm getting this. If I lose a couple group members, that's okay. I got 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 more coming in. Day trading is kind of in a similar place, especially recently. The market's been on the downturn, right? And I don't know enough. I know you can short the market and stuff, but day trading is or not even just day trading, Forex trading in general, it can be hard to predict. Building up other sources of revenue, I think, is an important part of building your business so that you can get to that 6-figure a year, right?
It's really important. With trading, you actually cannot predict your revenue. You can follow your process, and if the market gives you a big trade, you can take it. Kind of like what you were saying, sometimes the money comes, sometimes it doesn't, and that's how it is in trading. And so having a secondary source of revenue is really great. And I recommend that to my students. Look, if you want to become a full-time trader, that's wonderful, but you need to continue to get some kind of side revenue because it takes the pressure off, for one. It takes the pressure off, and if you're trading under pressure, it makes it a lot more difficult.
100%. That's another good point. Just kind of finding the similarities between my business and yours. When the pressure is on, you're willing to accept clients that are maybe not a good fit.
Because you need the money, you need it now.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's not a place you want to be.
It's like, I'll do this, like a sponsorship deal or something. I don't want to do this sponsorship deal. I don't want this person to be my sponsor. It's right. Kind of like taking the product you don't really love or whatever, but you need that money, you need it now type thing. It's not a fun place to be.
No, it's not. It's frustrating for the client or the sponsor. It's frustrating for you because now it's frustrating for everybody. I wasn't expecting that as to get to that point, but having the multiple sources of revenue, having the cash flow alleviates that pressure. I don't wake up every morning like, what if I lose these couple clients? I'll be okay. I've been diversified, and I think that's something that's really important. How many, I don't know how far back you want to pull the curtain, but just if you could just break down, what are the primary sources of income for your business?
So it all started with the website and the traffic. And so that's still the foundation, really. So one of the great sources is monetizing my traffic. So how do I do that? I put ads on my website, and I collect leads. And so then I monetize those leads through direct sends. So other trading coaches will ask for if I'm trading currency trading, which is what I do, but maybe another guy's got an options course. So it's not a direct competitor, but he's like, hey, I need traffic. So I sell direct traffic sends to those, to another coach. And what I would do is, the way that we do it is I say, look, here he is. He's got this free report. Go check it out. He's going to give you 5 steps to get started with options trading. So I send an email, and then the traffic comes over, and whoever signs up for that free report, he'll pay me per lead for that. So monetize through ads, monetize through traffic. And then I have a trading course that I sell. So I teach people how to trade. That's another way for monetization. So that's the primary method. And I mentioned I have a trading podcast, and so one of the ways I monetize through that is I do have sponsorships on the podcast, which generates some revenue. And then I also, most of my guests are trading coaches. And so after I interview them, we build a great relationship, kind of like you and I here. I promote them. I make them look really good. And it's genuine. It's totally genuine because I'm so curious. I just ask a lot of questions. But after the interview's over, I usually ask them how their business is going and if there's anything I can do. And one of the things that I can do to help them is to sell them traffic and even sometimes coach them with their marketing.
Brilliant. Referrals, affiliate. It sounds like affiliate programs with people and companies that are a good fit.
Right.
Ads, podcast, YouTube. You generating AdSense revenue, or is it
YouTube? They cut me off and they banned me, and they will not tell me why. And so I still produce the content because it's great because I get all kinds of customers through that, and also sponsorships. Like they're like, hey, I want to sponsor your YouTube video or whatever, but YouTube has cut me off and they will not reinstate me, and they will not tell me why either.
Well, I'm not going to go there on this episode because of time constraints, but this is why, people, it's important that you own your relationships. If you're putting all your eggs in the TikTok, the Instagram, the YouTube income basket, you are exposed. You are exposed. And I love those as forms of side income, but that's why I think it's really impressive what you've built, Casey, because if you lose one source of income, you're okay. I've got all these others in place. That's a good place to be when you're building up your 6-figure business. So, Casey, before I let you go here, it is almost time for the world famous After Hours Entrepreneur Rapid Fire. I hope you're ready. I hope you are buckled up, Buttercup. We're about to get into it. But first, tell us, where can we find you online, Casey?
So primarily my website, tradingstrategyguides.com. And if you are interested in learning some trading tips or interested in learning to trade, I have a special offer. It's tradingstrategyguides.com/podcast. And I have a free report that teaches some trading tips on there if you're interested.
All right. Well, Casey, rapid fire. Halloween has just ended. What is the best Halloween candy?
Snickers.
Good choice.
I didn't even have to think about it.
Reese's is the correct answer, but I'll take Snickers.
I can't eat that. It's no good. I don't like it.
That's a fair point. What's the scariest movie you've ever seen?
Oh my goodness, dude. I don't like scary movies. I refuse to watch scary movies. I will not watch them. Not because I'm scared. I just think they're usually stupid. I honestly cannot answer that question because I guess Jaws. Jaws would be the scariest.
Jaws is pretty scary. I live here in South Florida, and I will say anytime I would go diving and you drop off the boat and you're just completely exposed, it pops in your mind. Next question. If you could be any animal, what would you be?
I really like lions.
Good choice. If you could sit next to anybody on a plane, what would you say? Or who would you sit next to? Excuse me.
Oh, who would I say? I was going to say, I try not to talk to people on planes, but I've had some I had a great podcasting connection on a plane. I sat next to a podcaster once and he showed me all of his tips on the whole flight. And then I ended up being a guest on his show. So that was pretty cool. But to answer your question, who would I sit next to? Oh man, these are hard. Elon Musk.
Very timely time to be sitting next to Elon. I think he could give you some insights. World's richest man, just bought Twitter. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
Western Pennsylvania.
Okay, very specific, but I'll take it.
That's where I live now.
And that is the right answer. Where I live now.
I love it. I love where I live. I love it.
Where will you be at professionally in 10 years?
Professionally, where I'll be at, I am going to hope that most of my goals will be met, and I will be doing quite a few different things, but not as much in the day-to-day business, but more overseeing several different businesses.
Bitcoin, overrated or underrated?
Underrated. Good question.
I'm very fascinated with crypto. Final question here for you. If you had 10 seconds with yourself 10 years ago, what would you say, Casey?
Stick with one thing at a time.
Wise freaking words. Casey Stubbs, thanks for joining After Hours Entrepreneur, brother.
Thanks, Mark.
Boom. There you have it. Another epic episode in the books. I hope you enjoyed today, and I hope that you're thinking about how you can diversify your income streams. Super important, super relevant to the health of your business. And that's what we're here for. I want you to go out, take these action steps, and take action yourself. Make the moves, make it happen. That's all I got for you today. Go out and make it happen. Take the action. Thanks for subscribing and leaving a review. I'll catch you here next time on After Hours Entrepreneur. See you next time. Peace.